Dating apps had always been a mixed bag for me. Despite trying all the popular ones, my luck was usually pretty dismal. Then, one of my friends mentioned he was having great success on an app called Hot or Not. Intrigued, I decided to give it a try, hoping it would be different from the rest. Almost immediately, I started getting likes. Most of them were from women I didn't find particularly attractive, but I was encouraged by the activity. Then, I matched with a blonde girl named Julia. She was cute, and our conversation flowed effortlessly. Julia was responsive and seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say. We quickly moved our chat to Snapchat at her suggestion. When I asked for her number, she insisted on sticking to Snapchat, which I found a bit odd but agreed to. Her Snap score was under 1,000, which raised my suspicions. To ensure she was real, I bluntly asked her to send a selfie. She complied, and it matched her profile pictures. Still cautious, I asked her to send another snap with a thumbs up or a peace sign. After a brief pause, she sent a snap of herself holding up a peace sign. Convinced, we continued chatting and eventually made plans to meet. She invited me over to her house, saying she was home alone, and gave me an address that matched her Snap Map location. I got ready and drove to the address, which was in a rundown part of town. The street was lined with dilapidated houses and littered with garbage. As I arrived, I noticed that none of the houses had any lights on, and many looked abandoned. Despite my growing unease, I texted Julia to let her know I was there. She replied, telling me to come around back because the front door was broken. As I walked around the house, I saw someone peeking through a window. I texted Julia again, asking if that was her, but received no response. I saw a figure waving at me from the front door and assumed it was her. However, as I approached, two men emerged from the driveway. Before I could react, one of them hit me with a bat and the other kicked me to the ground. The figure from the door, who I had thought was Julia, turned out to be a large man. He grabbed my wallet and the three of them ran off into the night. Dazed and bruised, I managed to get back to my car, where my phone was safely locked inside. I called the police, who arrived quickly. They took my statement and searched the area but found no trace of my attackers. The profile on Hot or Not was already deleted, and I hadn't gotten a good look at the men, making identification impossible. The whole experience left me feeling violated and foolish. They hadn't taken much, just a bit of cash and my ID, but the psychological impact was much greater. When I got home, I shared the story with my friends in our group chat. One of my friends, Darren, recognized the girl in the snaps and told me she looked exactly like Lisa, a girl who had died 2 years ago from a heroin overdose. Another friend confirmed Darren's observation. The revelation gave me chills. Who had I been chatting with, and why had they lured me to that house? The situation was beyond eerie, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched as I replayed the events in my mind. In the days following, I became increasingly paranoid. Every time my phone buzzed, I feared it was another message from whoever had set me up. I stopped using dating apps and avoided going out alone. My friends tried to reassure me, but the experience had left a deep scar. One night, a couple of weeks later, I received an anonymous message on Snapchat. The sender claimed to know what happened to me and offered to explain. Despite my better judgment, I responded, desperate for answers. The messages were cryptic, hinting at some sort of vendetta but never revealing the full story. I took the messages to the police, but there was little they could do. The sender used a burner account, and tracking them down would be nearly impossible. The mystery remained unsolved, and the unease never fully left me. Reflecting on the incident, I realized how many red flags I had ignored. I had been so eager to meet someone new that I overlooked the inconsistencies and suspicious behavior. The experience taught me to be more cautious and trust my instincts. Now, I'm much more careful with online interactions. I meet people in public places and make sure someone knows where I am. The memory of that night is a constant reminder to stay vigilant and protect myself. The eerie encounter changed me. I'm still out there, meeting new people, but I approach it with a much more cautious mindset. In the end, the experience was a harsh lesson in the dangers of online dating, one that I won't soon forget. I've I've always been aware of the dangers of online dating, but like many, I felt somewhat invincible behind my computer screen. I've been using Tinder for years, meeting countless women and going on numerous dates. I'm usually very upfront about my intentions, and if someone is looking for something more serious than me, we part ways amicably. A few months ago, I had my first real scare with the app. I'd become a bit lax about being cautious, which turned out to be a mistake. I matched with a beautiful girl named Teresa. She reached out to me first, and our conversation quickly turned flirty and suggestive, exactly what I was looking for. After chatting for a while, I suggested we meet up. Teresa seemed hesitant at first, saying she couldn't leave her house because her dog was sick and she wanted to stay with it. She also mentioned being embarrassed about where she lived, but I reassured her that it didn't matter to me. She seemed touched by my offer and agreed to have me over, but only when her aunt wasn't home. This should have raised some red flags, but I was too excited to think clearly. She gave me the address, but not immediately. I had to wait for about an hour before she finally sent it, which seemed odd. Still, I was eager to meet her and headed to her place. The neighborhood was run down, with dilapidated houses and garbage strewn about. There was only one working streetlight, casting eerie shadows across the road. When I arrived, I texted her to let her know I was there. She replied quickly, saying she saw me and to come around back because the front door was loud. This made me uneasy, but I pushed on. As I walked around the house, I noticed someone peeking through the window. I texted Teresa again, asking if that was her, but got no reply. I saw a figure waving at me from the front door and assumed it was her. I asked if she was wearing a black sweatshirt and got a quick response confirming it. I turned off my car and started to get out when I noticed the figure had disappeared from the doorway. As I approached, two men emerged from the driveway. Before I could react, one hit me with a bat while the other kicked me to the ground. A third person, who I initially thought was Teresa, came out of the house. He was a large man who quickly took my wallet. The three men ran off into the darkness, leaving me bruised and disoriented. Luckily, my phone was in my locked car and they didn't take my keys. I managed to crawl back to my car and call the police. When they arrived, they were sympathetic but couldn't do much. The Tinder profile was already deleted and I hadn't gotten a good look at my attackers. The only real hassle was replacing my ID, as I didn't have much money in my wallet. They ended up robbing a broke man, which was a small consolation. I went to the ER that night and discovered I had 2 broken ribs. Considering what could have happened, I was lucky. Reflecting on that night, I realized how many red flags I ignored. I was lured into a trap by a fake profile, and it makes me angry that those men are still out there, possibly tricking others. Although I'd like to say I learned my lesson about Tinder and online dating, I haven't completely given it up. I'm just much more cautious now, always ensuring I meet in public places and letting someone know where I'm going. Online dating can be a minefield, but with a bit more caution, it can still be navigated safely. It was the winter break of 2015, and college students had flooded back into town. With no girlfriend and nothing much to do, I decided to try Tinder, the dating app everyone was buzzing about. It was a chilly Thursday night, perfect for staying in and exploring this new digital dating scene. After downloading the app and setting up my profile with a few flattering photos, I typed a simple bio mentioning that I was a college athlete and a fitness enthusiast. Swiping right on nearly everyone, I quickly used up my daily quota without a single match. Just as I was about to give up and delete the app, my phone buzzed with a notification. I had a match. My heart raced as I opened the app to see who had matched with me. Her name was Megan, and she was gorgeous, with photos that could easily be from a magazine, a beach shot, a candid with friends, a party pic, and one of her in a casual setting. She was my age and studied at a nearby university. Our conversation started innocuously enough with a, "Hey." Megan responded almost immediately, and we quickly fell into a flirty back and forth. She suggested we meet up that night, saying she was watching a movie alone and thought it would be fun to have company. She sent me an address, and I agreed to come over. I told my parents I was heading out and drove to the address, which was in a quiet part of town. Upon arrival, I noticed 2 cars in the driveway, which seemed odd since Megan hadn't mentioned anyone else being home. I texted her to let her know I had arrived, and she responded, "Come around back, the front door is broken." Feeling a bit uneasy, I walked around to the back of the house. As I passed a window, I noticed the blinds shift slightly, as if someone had been watching me. I texted Megan again, asking if that was her at the window, but she didn't reply. My gut told me something was off, but curiosity pushed me forward. I reached the backyard, which was dimly lit. The sliding glass door was old and partially transparent, allowing me to see inside. The house was dark, which raised more red flags. I decided to call Megan, but the call went to a generic voicemail. At that moment, I noticed the faint glow of a phone screen near the door, indicating someone was there. My instincts kicked in, and I decided to leave. I walked back to my car as calmly as possible, then sped off as soon as I was out of sight. When I got home, I saw multiple messages from Megan's number asking where I went and urging me to come back. The last few messages were chilling. "I'm not really Megan, you figured that out, right? And I know what you look like and have your number." I blocked the number and reported the profile on Tinder, but it had already been deleted. The whole experience was surreal, like something out of a thriller movie. Fortunately, I never heard from that person again, and while I still use dating apps occasionally, I'm much more cautious about meeting strangers.